Hi, and here we are. We have before us the painting I did this weekend. You may or may not have seen the time-lapse video of. This is Ruby Beach in Washington on the Pacific Northwest coast. It's 12 by 16. We're going to paint this. You don't have to paint it as large. I'm sorry, it's not 12 by 16, it's 9 by 16. As you can see, I didn't paint all the way to the top and the bottom because of the scale of the photograph. I'm very happy with this painting. We're going to do it again. I'm going to do it with you. And I wanted to go over some of the colors I used and wanted to talk about some of the things I'm going to change. I had made a mistake when I was texturing the rocks and splattered too much, and it got into the sky, and it was really, I couldn't take it out without making a mess of things. So I went in with a Boulder Wash, and so I've got these textures and runbacks. Now they look like clouds and they're soft and it works, so the painting is fine. But I had to go back in and recover the orange, since it's transparent, to cover up some of those splatters. So I'll be more careful with the splatters this time. I want to have a smoother orange wash, and then it fades down into fog. And there was a crisper edge in the photograph in my original drawing of the trees up here that I like, that I'm going to try and recreate. So those are the things that I'm going to do. What I wanted to do is, there's the photo, and it's just printed on a home printer, so it's not as rich as the painting, but I do like the soft tones in it, and I will try to keep some of that. There's a lawnmower going. Finally have the Daytona races over, and now I've got a lawnmower. I guess we're just always going to have sound in the background. I have my paints in front of me. I've got 2 buckets of water, one for clean water, one for dirty water. I have some white gouache. And then these are all 12 colors that are in the QOR setup. The main players we're going to use are the transparent orange. The purple is used mostly to deepen the orange, so it'll be a mixing color, and to get this dark warm color on top of the orange. Sap green. These are your 3 key players. Then we go to the ultramarine blue for the water. And I did use a little bit of Payne's gray and a little bit of these 2 warmer brown colors on and off. So I also did throw some yellow in. So almost the whole set. I didn't really use a whole lot of the reds. That's probably what was kept out. 9 or 10 colors, but really it's 3 main players and then just adjusting from there. So I just wanted to put those main players together on a piece of paper for you and give you an idea of what they'll do. And also I'll jot down the names of the colors for myself. So starting out with some of the orange. Now what I love about this transparent Pyrrole orange from QOR is just that. It's transparent. If you use the cadmium oranges in the Winsor & Newton sets and in some of the other colors, you don't get transparency. You get a very heavy color, and it's almost a gouache. It's really opaque. This is a beautiful, beautiful color, and if you mix it with a little bit of purple, you can get a nice brown or a deeper orange and get a really nice range. So this is a big component of the painting. And then I used a bunch of sap green as well, maybe not that light. And when I need darks, I transition the sap green with purple, and it makes these lovely dark colors without it being a dull black. And you can transition that even a little bit better with a bit more green in the mix so that it's a smoother transition. So let's talk for a second about what happens when you take that lovely orange and that really nice green, that sap green from QOR. What happens when you put these two together? Well, you get a warmer and warmer green that is actually leading to a warm brown. And if you throw a little bit of that purple in at the top of it, you really do get a nice brown. So these three colors are our main players. For the painting. Everything is on the warm side. Even the blue that we use, which is the French ultramarine blue, which you see here, and mostly it's going to be thinned down. It's going to be in fog and in the water, so it's going to have to be starting from, there'll be a little bit of deepness when you get to a couple of highlights in the water, but really it's going to run out to a toned down version of the blue with more and more water in it. Wanted to talk for a minute too about the paper that we're going to be on. This is my notebook that I use for you guys in class, so I'll label these colors and put this together as a file with the video when I upload it. There are some very strong browns in this, and for that I use this oxide brown. You have to get a little bit more of it on your brush, but when I want to go straight for the brown and get it down and then mix in the other colors, then it's nice to take some of that purple and get it in there, and you really can make a deep brown but also an interesting color. You know, that's how I get into that deep brown that's up by the tops of the trees. So that's got, I want to put that purple next to there so I remember that I did that. Okay, so the only other color that I really used a bunch of, and it was for darkening purposes, is that Payne's gray. And it's a gray. It mixes with all these colors without getting muddy. It's on the cool side, and it transitions down to a blended color very nicely. You can really wash that out and get it down to a thin color, so it can be very rich. And it mixes with all these colors, so that works well. I probably did use a little bit of alizarin crimson in this just to bring it to the purple side a little bit once in a while. So I'm putting some of that in here. But these are the main colors that are involved in the painting. Other thing I wanted to talk about was I have switched from Arch watercolor paper. I had been using it for many years, and I just found the consistency wasn't there with the surface of the paper. I have switched to Hahnemuhle, and I really like it. The paint sits on the paper long enough for me to be able to do things with it, wipe it out, throw some water at it. The paper holds up to the coloring pretty well, so that's what I've switched to, and all of the demo paintings that you've seen in Daytona have been done on the Hahnemuhle paper. The other player in this painting is the gouache, the zinc white, which I use liberally to make the fog, to make the highlights on the water wherever I needed to, especially transitioning that sky down to where it meets the water, because there really is no hard edge, so I had to have a smooth transition. So while it was still wet between that grayish, whitish, blue water that blended down from the orange, I kept some zinc white in there and mixed it into those two wet colors give it a really, really soft transition. And again, into some of those coves where the rock formations jut out, I used a little bit of it there. So that's a little bit about the colors in this painting. I'm really happy with the first version I did that you may have seen the time lapse on, but I want to get it a little bit crisper. Keep that emotion in it, keep the fog, keep the light feeling to it. The sky I may not go as dark on. I only really went that dark because of the spatters that I tried to get out and made a little bit of a mess. It worked. It's a happy accident, but I want to try and get a cleaner version so I can show them to you side by side. So join me on the other side and we'll get busy painting. Hi there and welcome. We are starting off the week with a painting of Ruby Beach in Washington State in Olympic National Park. It is, I did it over the weekend. I did a quick time lapse of it to figure out how I wanted to paint it and how I wanted to show it to you all. So I'm going to switch over to the view. There we go. And as you can see, here's the printout, which I will keep nearby. Keep an eye on it so that I keep my colors close. And here's the painting that I did over the weekend. I'm pretty happy with it. I got a little crazy with flecking in the dots, and it got all into the orange, and I ended up having to cover the orange a second time, which is why it's a little uneven. And it also melted some of the tree line. I'm going to try and be a little bit tighter about those details. In this first wash, we have the drawing here. And all we are going to do is put in the orange wash and fade it down to the color of the water. And that'll be about all we get to. Orange. I'll try and have this kind of foggy, then into the bluish color, and then down into a little bit of a light brown for the sand. And we'll leave it at that. That'll be as far as we get in this first wash. It's important to get this down nice and clean, which I did, but then because I got those flecks all crazy, I had to make some changes, and it got a little ugly. It's not a bad painting, and I like it a lot, but there are things I want to try and do a little bit differently this time. So that's what we're going to do. I'm mixing up some of the orange. I'm throwing just a little bit of that yellow in there. Liven it up just a little bit. Making sure I mix up plenty of it. It's a lot of real estate to cover. You don't want to have to try and mix it on the go. I am going to just paint around the shape of the, not even shape, I'm not even going to paint around the rocks, maybe a little bit. It's okay if some of that orange gets in there, and then we'll build up on the next layer. So the important thing is to have enough paint, get your paper wet, and then get in there confidently and smoothly. And I'm going to mix up a little bit of that blue at the same time. Doesn't have to be very dark, and it's okay. I just want to get a little bit of a base in there. We will be using some white gouache as well in this painting to get in. We'll be putting some white gouache in to help make that fog and some of the highlights on the water. So it's not too critical at this moment that I worry about protecting all the whites. Now it's about getting a nice clean wash down. That's what I want to do here. Just get that color down and move down through the painting. Alright, so the The paper is nice and wet. I left some of this dry and I left some of this rock dry. That's okay. It's actually, it'll help with some of the variety. And now it's just a matter of getting in there and getting that wash down. And I want to try this time very carefully to simply get it in, one even wash, and not think too much about it. Just do it, leave it clean, let gravity help it flow down the paper. Get all of this sky in before the paper dries. You want to be able to hit that. Okay. It did a nice job of going around that rock. I like what's happening up here. I'm simply going to just make some squiggles around it. Let there be some areas where the paper's white. And then I'm going to come back up here and start putting in some clean water right across here to help make that fog realistic and that blend for where the water is. I'll come into the water area. Now I'm going to grab some of that blue and just come down with it. We will tweak all this. All we want is a nice clean wash to start with. I'm grabbing a little bit of that sandy color for the bottom. Brave am I? How wet is this? Still wet enough for me to drop in a little bit more color over here, a little bit more here, if we can get away with it. I probably should have left all of this alone, to be honest with you. Now what I'm going to have to do is just hit all of it and hope for the best. I did exactly what I said I wasn't going to do. Congratulations, that's what watercolor is. Sometimes making some bad decisions. But if I keep this wet enough, should be okay. I'm going to turn this sideways for a second. run some more orange in here, see if I can't get this to be nice and clean. It also helps me that it's going in the correct direction. So it's still pretty wet. All right. This is actually going to help me a little bit. I'm reaching for some clean water, and I'm going to come in here and make that fog line again. But I'm going to pull out the extra paint from here. Make the fog line here as well. And the trick with the fog line is to clean your brush after each stroke. We're getting a really nice fog line here. I'll get the same on this side. Beating up the paper a little bit, but that's okay. These striations look natural because they're running in the right direction for the sunset. And while I'm here, I can run in some of the watercolor. And this is a Pacific Coast thing. This is the water's more blue out there than it is on the East Coast, where it's more of a green color. So we're just okay. That's really all I'm going to do with you guys. Just wipe out some of the color on this rock. Some of it will remain as texture. This is all going to get painted over later anyway. So that's all we can do. And you know me, every time I say that, I put the brush on the paper again. Okay. There. Alright, so that's as far as we're going to take this. I'm going to let it dry, and tomorrow we'll come back and start adding in the layers, building up the mountains and the trees and the rocks. We're in a good place. I like this nice transparent gold. It's orange. It's soft. It's glowing nicely. If I can keep that glow at the fog line, that'll be very good. I can always come back in with the white gouache if I need to, but if I can make a nice soft edge to begin with, that's half the battle. Alright, so you guys enjoy this video, and I'll be back tomorrow to take you through the next steps.